Welcome back to TPS. Every fan base in sports wants to be like the New England Patriots, Pittsburgh Penguins, New York Yankees, and Golden State Warriors. In short, you just want your team to win every single year. But the world isn't big enough. Only so many teams can win. On the other hand, there's plenty of room for plenty of long-time losing teams. And that results in some very sad fan bases who are left to wonder if things will ever get better, or if they're going to endure sports heartbreak forever. I'm Justin Fraction, and today we present the 10 saddest fan bases in sports right now. At TPS, we post videos every single day, so don't forget to click the subscribe button to subscribe. Then click the notification bell to be notified when we post a new video. And don't forget to leave your ideas down below. You never know, we might use one and give you a shout out. But first, a few honorable mentions. Toronto Blue Jays, 22 years of no playoffs followed by consecutive ALCS trips in 2015 and 16. The front office refused to spend big dollars to retain stars like David Price, Josh Donaldson, and Edwin Encarnacion. Now the Jays are back to the AL East basement, while the AL East bullies, the Red Sox and Yankees, keep on winning. At least the Raptors and Maple Leafs are still fun. Buffalo Bills. It's sad that this team's highlight in the 21st century was simply making the playoffs in 2017. That ended an 18-year playoff drought. The Bills are in a major rebuild right now, and they won't be contending for a few more years. On the bright side, Tom Brady gets closer to retirement each passing day. Minnesota Timberwolves. Jimmy Butler was supposed to form a super trio with Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns. So much for that. Butler forced his way out of town after 1 year. Head coach Tom Thibodeau was fired. Here's to more long-term mediocrity, Minnesota fans. The New York Mets. They reached the World Series in 2015, then made the NL wildcard game a year later. But the Mets keep getting burned with expensive free agent signings and bad trades. Noah Syndergaard keeps getting injured. Meanwhile, the crosstown rival Yankees look more dominant than ever. Poor Mets fans. Number 10, Seattle Mariners. The Mariners own the longest playoff drought among all North American teams, having last qualified in 2001. Obviously, that alone is good reason for the folks in Seattle to be sad about the state of their baseball team. Well, things got even more sad in the 2018-19 season. The Mariners were coming off of an 89-win season, but the front office decided it was time to start from scratch. Star closer Edwin Diaz and slugger Robinson Cano were dealt to the Yankees. The vastly underrated Jean Segura was moved to the Philadelphia Phillies, while left-handed starter James Paxton was sent to the New York Yankees. Indeed, the rebuild is on in Seattle again. On the bright side, the Mariners now have one stacked and beautiful-looking farm system. But the bad news? They'll be bad for a while. This playoff drought could easily go beyond 20 years. But cheer up, Mariners fans. The Seattle Seahawks are still good, and Seattle is getting the 32nd NHL franchise. Nothing to be upset about. Number 9, Chicago Bulls. When you're spoiled with so much in such little time, you naturally hope and expect it to last forever. But for Chicago Bulls fans, it's been an absolute nightmare since Michael Jordan led this team to its 6th NBA championship back in 1998. The 90s Bulls, one of the greatest dynasties ever, won 6 NBA championships over an 8-year span. If it weren't for MJ and Scottie Pippen, this franchise would have a sadder look than the Cleveland Browns. The Bulls have been a very mediocre team for much of the 21st century. Things were on the up in 2011 when Derrick Rose won the MVP award while Chicago finished with the league's best record. Unfortunately, D. Rose's knees betrayed him, and he and the Bulls never became that Eastern Conference juggernaut. So the Bulls have since undergone a long overdue and painful rebuilding process. There are some pieces to like here, like Chris Dunn and Lauri Markkanen, but Bulls fans just want the glory days back, or at least a consistent playoff contender. But nope, it's back to square one with this franchise. At least the Cubs won a World Series in 2016, and the Blackhawks have 3 Stanley Cups for this decade. There are worse sports cities, Chicago. Don't forget that. Number 8, Minnesota Vikings. Like, what more can the Vikings fans go through? They've had more than enough playoff heartbreaks throughout the years. In 2017 and 18, it truly felt like maybe, just maybe, it was time for Minnesota to finally pull through. Case Keenum and the Vikings reached the 2017 NFC Championship game following the Minneapolis Miracle. And hey, Minnesota was hosting Super Bowl 52. But just when it felt like destiny was on Minnie's side, they get blown out by backup quarterback Nick Foles and the Philadelphia Eagles. That's okay, right? The Vikings upgraded at quarterback by signing Kirk Cousins to an $84 million contract. If Keenum can get them to the NFC title game, Cousins could easily get them to a Super Bowl, right? Nope. Cousins was a major bust in his first year, and the Vikings missed the playoffs. The poor Minnie fans are always getting their hopes up, then they come crashing down, rinse and repeat. Thing is, the Vikings fans have gone through so much heartbreak that you wonder if the pain really affects them anymore. Seriously, they must be building up an immunity from the feelings of sports devastation. Number 7, Buffalo Sabres. It's hard enough for Sabres fans in that this team hasn't won a Stanley Cup since its inception in 1970. Not only that, but the Sabres have been just downright horrible in the 21st century. Is there a worse NHL franchise than this team right now? The Sabres last reached the Stanley Cup final in 1999 when they lost the series on Brett Hull's controversial overtime winner in Game 6. The Sabres haven't won a playoff series since 2007, and heck, they haven't made the playoffs since 2011. Other than that, it's been constant bottom finishes, and despite all those high draft picks, the Sabres have gone nowhere. Jack Eichel, Sam Reinhart, and Casey Mittelstadt just aren't enough. Sabres fans aren't exactly screaming for a Stanley Cup, but the return to the postseason would be nice. Heck, even being in the race by March would be a victory in itself. Instead, Buffalo supporters are left simply counting down the days until the draft lottery every year. Number 6, New Orleans Pelicans. The Hornets-Pelicans franchise was set back quite a bit when they traded all-star point guard Chris Paul to the Los Angeles Clippers for what turned out to be a fairly minimal return. The Pelicans finally got a break when they won the 2012 draft lottery, using the top selection on Kentucky big man Anthony Davis. The good news is that he's come every bit as advertised, earning 6 all-star nods and constantly placing among the league's scoring leaders. Davis is by far a top 3 or 5 player in the NBA today. The bad news is that the Pelicans haven't been able to build around Davis, and they've only made the postseason twice under his watch. The mediocrity took a toll on Davis, and he requested a trade during the 2018-19 season. And so another franchise star is on his way out, as if things weren't bad enough for the Pelicans fans. They better hope that the return in this trade will be a good one. It's their only hope of becoming a relevant franchise. Number 5, Texas Rangers. Plenty of MLB fan bases can complain about the direction of their team, but it's hard to think of a group that's had to deal with more heartbreak and sadness than the Texas Rangers. Losing back-to-back World Series is the ultimate definition of devastation in sports. Losing back-to-back ALDSs to the Toronto Blue Jays in 2015 and 16 wasn't so fun either. But it's not all about the playoff losses here, folks. The Rangers, after forgettable 2017 and 18 seasons, offer little reason for optimism in the foreseeable future. This team has seen some of its top players leave over the years, namely Nelson Cruz, Cole Hamels, and Adrian Beltre. The farm system is very weak now, and the Rangers aren't anywhere close to reaching the level of AL West rivals like the Houston Astros and Oakland Athletics. All those gut-wrenching playoff losses, and now the Rangers face one very long and daunting rebuilding process. Number 4, Washington Redskins. Remember when the Redskins had that dynasty 3 decades ago? You know, the one that produced 3 Super Bowl championships? Pepperidge Farm remembers. Since Dan Snyder became owner in 1999, the Washington franchise has been quite a train wreck. Through 2018, their record under Snyder was 139, 180, and 1. Only 5 trips to the postseason, only 2 playoff wins. Snyder, of course, has lost the fans in Washington. Ticket prices keep getting raised, and he simply refuses to realize that 7 to 8 win seasons are unacceptable now. He doesn't overhaul his front office. He hates making the necessary coaching changes, but he does succeed at alienating his fan base. It's hard for Redskins fans to really be upset about the production on the field at this point. They know as long as Snyder refuses to change his ways, they won't get better. Ticket sales and attendance are down. Dear Mr. Snyder, maybe realize the fans are rebelling. Maybe change your ways and try to build an actual winner. Number 3, Ottawa Senators. So, how do we go about this? The Ottawa Senators were 1 goal away from reaching the Stanley Cup final in 2017. Ever since that time, franchise star Erik Karlsson was traded to the San Jose Sharks. Star center Kyle Turris was moved in a 3-team trade, bringing Matt Duchene over to Ottawa. The Sens surrendered their 2019 first-rounder to the Colorado Avalanche in the Duchene trade. Fan favorite Mark Stone was traded to Vegas. Duchene was traded to Columbus. Assistant GM Randy Lee was forced to resign after harassing a 19-year-old bus driver. Sens owner Eugene Melnyk failed again to secure a downtown arena after a proposed plan fell through. Speaking of Melnyk, he's pretty much responsible for driving all the Sens stars out of town. Melnyk is cheap and doesn't like paying his star players. The fans have put up #Melnyk out signs all over town. An Ottawa restaurant owner banned him for life. Even Sens icon Daniel Alfredson said the franchise needs a new owner. So the Sens have traded all their star players, are now the worst team in the NHL without a concrete downtown arena plan. And the owner is at war with his own fans. The fans want to sell the team. Melnyk refuses. Yeah, the Senators fans are hurting, and they've certainly had better days. The only question is if it can get any worse for Ottawa. Number 2, New York Knicks. Yeah, well, we know the Knicks love their chances of getting Kevin Durant, and perhaps another prized 2019 free agent like Kyrie Irving or Jimmy Butler, maybe even Anthony Davis. And of course, the Knicks are in prime position to earn a top pick in the 2019 draft. But let's wait to see if any of that happens. It'd be such a Knicks thing to trade superstar Kristaps Porzingis for the sole purpose of clearing out room for Durant, only for him to wind up signing elsewhere. And even if the Knicks build a super team this summer, we can't discount all the awfulness their fans have had to observe these past few years. The team has only made the playoffs 3 times since 2005, only 1 postseason series victory, and their last playoff berth was in 2013. The Knicks have recycled through coach after coach after coach. Hiring the legendary Phil Jackson to run the front office wound up being more laughable than memorable. The Carmelo Anthony trade to Houston didn't do much to help the rebuilding stage. Probably should have traded him like 2 or 3 years earlier. The Knicks endured an 18-game losing streak during the 2018-19 season, their worst in franchise history. If that wasn't rock bottom, we don't know what is. And number 1, Oakland Raiders. The Raiders are one of the NFL's worst teams for a decade and a half in the 21st century. They made the postseason in 2016 with a 12-4 record, ending a 14-year playoff drought. But then in Raiders' typical fashion, it all came crashing down. They had a bad year in 2017, and owner Mark Davis decided it was enough to spark big changes. He gave John Gruden a 10-year, $100 million contract to leave the Monday Night Football broadcast booth and return to coaching after a decade-long hiatus. Gruden decided it was time to destroy the whole thing. He traded franchise stars Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper, securing a bundle of picks in return. But good luck replacing 2 young established superstars like those 2 guys. Worse yet, Davis broke the hearts of longtime Raiders fans by announcing his plans to relocate the team to Vegas. And what do the Oakland Raiders supporters get in return? Oh yeah, a total tank job put together by Gruden. The good news is that the Raiders actually went out and acquired some talent during the 2019 offseason, namely trading for star wideout Antonio Brown, and they also have plenty of high picks in the next couple of drafts. But this is still the Raiders we're talking about. A wide receiver in his 30s and a couple of draft picks won't guarantee them winning a season, not even close. And even if things do begin to turn around for this franchise, it's not like they'll be sticking around long enough for the fans in Oakland to enjoy it. Pretty much it's a lose-lose for Raiders fans at this point, and that's why they're tops on our list. Which team do you think has the saddest fan base right now? Join us in the comment section down below, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.